Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's indeed a pleasure to rise today to speak at second reading debate on my private member's bill, Bill 81, an act to amend the Employment Standards Act. Some may ask, Madam Speaker, why bother? Why bother when private members' bills have such a low probability of passing in a majority legislature such as the one we have today? Well, writing in the Canadian Parliamentary Review in 2012, Saskatchewan MLA David Forbes said that private members' bills have an interesting way of getting results, maybe not by the usual means, and that's what matters most to our constituents. Maybe we saw a little bit of that this morning, Madam Speaker. In fact, he quoted a Rolling Stones song to summarize this philosophy, and I know the Minister of Finance will appreciate this. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. So, Madam Speaker, this is my try to alleviate the struggles low-wage New Brunswickers face in my riding and throughout this province of ours. C'est la loi sur les normes d'emploi qui établit les droits fondamentaux des travailleurs et travailleuses et les obligations des employeurs. De nombreux travailleurs essentiels n'ont que la loi sur les normes d'emploi comme protection. So government could be doing more to facilitate greater unionization and provide representation in the province. By working together through collective action facilitated by a union, we know working people can effectively have real influence over securing a fairer share of the economic value they help create. And that's really how we need to look at it. The role that employees, that working people play in creating economic value, are they properly compensated for that? And all too often the answer is no. For low-income workers, organizing has been difficult because fast food outlets and big box stores depend on low wages to provide cheap food and retail services. In the absence of supportive legislation when employees organizing these sectors to assist them, the multinational simply shuts the local outlet down. And we've seen that across Canada. But, Madam Speaker, that's a focus for another bill, another day. Low-wage workers in New Brunswick have only the Employment Standards Act as protection at work. This creates a special and specific obligation for the Legislative Assembly to ensure that we provide for the level of wages and benefits that working people need. There's no other place for them to go, Madam Speaker, except for to their MLAs and to this Legislative Assembly. The latest statistics reported by the St. John Human Development Council's annual child poverty report card are sobering. On Campobello Island in Wilson's Beach, the child poverty rate is 43%. Not too far behind that, in St. Louis de Kent, it's 40%. In Chipman, it's 39%. In Oshibukto, it's 38%. In St. Stephen and in Campbellton, it's 35%. Bathurst, 32%. Even here in Fredericton, Madam Speaker, the child poverty rate is 25.5%. At $11.75 per hour, New Brunswick currently has the lowest minimum wage in the country, and that is not something you can support a family or even yourself on. Les gouvernements successifs avaient l'habitude de promouvoir les bas salaires laissés auprès des investisseurs de l'extérieur comme raison de venir installer leur entreprise chez nous. Les bas salaires signifient que leurs actionnaires peuvent retirer une plus grande part du gâteau du Nouveau-Brunswick. Par contre, les bas salaires signifient que un nombre de Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises ont de la difficulté à gagner du terrain. Today, there's a labor shortage in many sectors, Madam Speaker, and that's only going to get worse. So the province has got to start competing on wages and benefits, which means improving them both. St. John Human Development Council has done a real service to New Brunswickers in calculating the living wage, that is, what is necessary to cover just the necessities of life in our different communities. For Fredericton, it's $21.20 an hour. For St. John, it's $19.75 an hour. For Moncton, $18.65 an hour. And for Bathurst, $17.50 an hour. One has to ask, what minimum standard of living is the minimum wage supposed to provide at $11.75 per hour? Because it is nowhere near enough to cover the minimum necessities of life, nor is $13.75 an hour for that matter. Section 1 of this bill would raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, just as the St. John Human Development Council suggests, as does the Common Front for Social Justice and many other socially minded organizations. It's still not a living wage, Madam Speaker, but much closer than $13.25 or $11.75 an hour. A full-time minimum wage worker now earns an annual salary of $22,000 and $22,368. So at $21.20, the living wage for Fredericton, they would need to earn $44,000 a year. With a $15 an hour minimum wage, this bill would see that workers earn $31,000 per year, much closer to the living wage. Would be a significant step in the right direction. In 2019 in New Brunswick, there were 20,000 minimum wage workers, while 90,000 people made less than the $15 per hour. That, Madam Speaker, is 30% of our workforce, 30% of working New Brunswickers making under $15 an hour. We can fix that. We can fix that here in this Legislative Assembly. Increasing the minimum wage means businesses will find it easier to recruit and retain workers. It will increase the buying power of a large number of people, supporting and stimulating local economies, and it will help some get out of poverty. To help small businesses, nonprofits, cooperatives, and social enterprises affected by an increase in the minimum wage, having depended on paying a low wage, Section 11 of this bill would have the government establish a fund to provide financial assistance for those enterprises and nonprofits who require to help support the wage increase, to help that transition. En ce qui concerne le soutien du gouvernement aux entreprises, les avantages d'une subvention salariale directe dans ces cas-là donneraient des résultats bien plus importants que les subventions plus traditionnelles aux grandes entreprises. L'alternative, à savoir que des personnes subventionnent leur employeur en travaillant pour un salaire bien inférieur à un salaire de subsistance, est injuste. The higher the wage, the less staff turnover, which lowers recruitment and training costs. Absentee rates are lower and morale is higher, which increases overall productivity. About 40% of minimum wage earners are between 15 and 19, so a wage increase would enable them to contribute more to their family income, save for post-secondary education, and if they live outside the family, will be able to afford more of the necessities of life. Of course, there will be details to work out in implementing this wage increase, ranging from setting up the transitional fund to support nonprofits, small businesses, and cooperatives who need it, to addressing the special case of businesses in the hospitality sector that employ some tip-earning employees. L'article 2 du projet de loi fait en sorte que le salaire minimum soit révisé tous les ans au lieu de tous les 2 ans, pour qu'il soit conforme à celui des autres provinces des Maritimes. Cet article fait également en sorte que les mesures de la pauvreté et les soumissions du public soient prises en compte lors de la révision des taux de salaire minimum. When it comes to overtime, Madam Speaker, Sections 3, 4, and 5 of this bill will fix a long-standing anomaly for those making more than minimum wage. At the moment, time and a half must be paid for overtime, but not on your actual salary, but on minimum wage. It's the only place in Canada where this happens, Madam Speaker, and it's time to get rid of it. So this bill will treat New Brunswickers like every other Canadian and pay them time and a half for overtime based on their actual salary. Section 6 of the bill makes it so that employees are entitled to holiday pay immediately upon hire, instead of being required to wait 90 days to be eligible. No other Canadian provinces require employees to wait as long as 90 days to be eligible for holiday pay. Section 7 and 8 of this bill will reduce the period of employment required to receive 3 weeks of vacation time from 8 years to 5 years. Comes nowhere close to providing the kind of vacation time that is available in Europe and Scandinavia, but at least it's heading in the right direction. This will be comparable to vacation time entitlement in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, and British Columbia. Madam Speaker, currently employees who suffer a miscarriage or stillbirth are not guaranteed leave from their work to recover from such traumatic life events. The lack of leave available for miscarriages and stillbirths is, frankly, Madam Speaker, inhumane. Section 9 of this bill will ensure that unpaid leave is available, which either ends 17 weeks after the maternity leave has begun or 12 weeks after the date of the miscarriage or stillbirth. This actually is comparable to the leave available for women in Ontario, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. Now, Section 10 of Bill 81 will establish up to 10 paid sick days for employees whose employer does not provide them. The importance of sick days has been underscored by our experience with the COVID-19 pandemic and the growing challenges posed by mental health concerns in the workplace and broader society, Madam Speaker. Helpfully, a report commissioned by the Government of British Columbia and published just last month found the average increase in business costs of implementing a 10-day paid sick day policy would be 0.21%. The report I'm referring to or referencing, Madam Speaker, is entitled Estimates of the Gross Cost of Paid Sick Day Provisions in British Columbia and was written by economist Jim Stanford, Director of the Centre for Future Work. The report outlines a number of benefits of paid sick leave, and I wanted to detail a few of those because I think they're impressive. These include improved attendance among sick workers, colleagues who are less likely to become ill themselves if sick workers stay away. Makes sense. Deuxième, réduction des absences des travailleurs malades parce qu'ils peuvent s'occuper plus rapidement de leurs besoins grâce aux jours de maladie payés. Les travailleurs malades peuvent se rétablir et reprendre le travail plus rapidement. Thirdly, attendance benefits of preventative health are significant when workers can use paid sick days to undertake preventative health measures such as vaccinations, checkups, and other proactive measures like a mental health day. They're less likely to need sick days in the subsequent periods as a result. In some cases, workers, if financially compelled, will attend work even though they're unable to fully perform their duties because they can't afford to stay away otherwise. The resulting loss of productivity and efficiency is significant. It's been estimated at billions of dollars per year in Canada in lost output just by showing up at work sick. And of course, that carries special risks in the context of today's pandemic. À l'heure où les employeurs de nombreux secteurs d'activité se plaignent des difficultés qu'ils rencontrent pour recruter et conserver leur personnel, l'octroi d'avantages sociaux, d'abord comme les congés de maladie payés, améliorera le moral, réduira le taux de rotation et facilitera le recrutement. Consumers will more favorably view businesses which respect this basic benchmark of corporate responsibility, Madam Speaker, supporting a stronger brand value and building consumer loyalty if your local business owner is providing these paid sick days. It's the kind of place you want to support. Now, Madam Speaker, no individual employer can single-handedly protect public health, but the fact that employers who do not provide basic health protections like paid sick days demonstrably increases the risk of spread of viruses like COVID-19, which in turn undermines public health and jeopardizes, ultimately, business conditions themselves. In the extreme, if the absence of basic protections like paid sick leave increase the risk of a society-wide pandemic, at least to increase the risk of local outbreaks as a result of the pandemic, then failure to provide these benefits surely costs businesses many times more than it saves them. One of the unique things about this bill, Madam Speaker, is it recognizes the need for small businesses, nonprofits, community enterprises, cooperatives, who have come to rely on low minimum wage for at least some of their employees. It helps them to make the transition to greater benefits for their employees and higher wages. So it would establish a fund to provide wage subsidies during the transition to a higher minimum wage and transitional support for those who need it to cover or help cover the cost of sick days. With respect to government playing a role in supporting sick days, Madam Speaker, think about it as an extension of public health care, supporting preventative health care, exactly the kind of thing that urgently needs to be incorporated into health care reform. So if government provides some support towards making sick days possible, that truly is a kind of important component of our health care system if we think about it from the perspective of the need to really integrate an approach to preventative health care, and this would help us go down that road. Madam Speaker, my bill to amend the Employment Standards Act will bring benefits to tens of thousands of non-unionized working New Brunswickers whose wages and benefits are strictly defined by this legislation and only this legislation, the Employment Standards Act, and by this legislative assembly and only this legislative assembly, Madam Speaker. You can think, in a way, of the legislative assembly as the bargaining unit for low-wage New Brunswickers, and the Executive Council as the owner, the ones that we're negotiating with. So we have the Premier and Cabinet who propose one thing, maybe in terms of changes to benefits or minimum wages, and we have the Legislative Assembly that can make a counter-offer or an initial offer and have the Premier and Cabinet respond with a counter-offer, Madam Speaker, because there is nowhere else for low-wage workers to go. If they had a union, Madam Speaker, well, they could go to the union. This could become part of the bargaining process. Any of these elements in the bill today, Madam Speaker, that I'm proposing would become part of the bargaining process and legitimate parts of the bargaining process, and through the give and take of negotiation, some of these things over time, or many of them, would end up in contracts. But, Madam Speaker, the contract for low-wage workers essentially is decided by this legislative assembly in the way it votes on amendments to the Employment Standards Act. The Employment Standards Act is what lays out the salary and benefits for low-wage workers in the province. So we're it. We're it. There's no other place that makes decisions for these tens of thousands of low-wage workers, Madam Speaker. And so, you know, people, just like they elect union reps, they elect MLAs to this House. And MLAs, in their mind, I am sure, they've elected them to use their agency as members of the Legislative Assembly, as long as they're not a cabinet member, their agency in the Legislative Assembly to best serve the interests of those who have elected them, and that includes tens of thousands of low-wage workers. This places responsibility for the state of their wages and benefits squarely on the shoulders of the members of this legislature. We have a chance with this bill to make the lives of so many so much better by helping small businesses and local nonprofits attract and retain employees while increasing their productivity, Madam Speaker. It's an opportunity we should not pass up. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for the Minister of Transport.